The Galactic Council chamber fell into complete silence. Ambassador Krelvath of the Zentari Collective stood frozen at his podium, his four eyes blinking in confusion as the holographic display continued playing. Around him, representatives from 47 different species watched the footage with growing horror. The images showed young human children behind metal bars, sleeping on concrete floors with thin blankets, crying for parents who were nowhere to be seen. "This cannot be authentic," whispered Delegate Mirasol of the Etherian Federation. Her translucent skin flickered with shades of deep purple, indicating extreme distress. Surely the humans would not do this to their own offspring. Ambassador Sarah Chun of Earth stood at her podium, her face pale but composed. She had known this day would come. When humanity joined the galactic community 3 years ago, they had shared their history openly, the good parts and the terrible parts. It was only a matter of time before someone discovered the darker chapters of human civilization. "The footage is real," Sarah said quietly. Her voice carried across the massive chamber through the translation systems. "This happened on our world, multiple times throughout our history. The reaction was immediate and explosive." The insectoid Krix delegates began clicking their mandibles in rapid distress signals. The massive Gorvath ambassador slammed his fist against his podium, cracking the ancient stone. Even the normally emotionless Synth Collective representatives seemed to vibrate with something close to anger. "You cage your children?" roared High Elder Vorn of the Gorvath Empire. His gray skin had turned nearly black with rage. "You're young? The most precious gift any species can possess." Sarah took a deep breath. She had prepared for this moment for months, ever since a curious Zentari researcher had accessed Earth's historical databases and discovered records from various periods of human history. Detention facilities, orphanages with locked doors, immigration centers where families were separated. The researcher had been so disturbed that he had immediately brought the information to the council. "Yes," Sarah admitted. "We did, and I will not stand here and defend those actions. They were wrong. They were cruel. They represented some of the worst failures of our species." The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted accusations across the room. Several species called for humanity's immediate expulsion from the galactic community. The Etherian representative actually wept, her tears floating upward like tiny crystals due to her species' unique biology. Ambassador Krelvath finally found his voice. "How could any species harm its own young in such a manner? Children are sacred. They are the future. Every civilized species in this galaxy protects its young above all else. This is the most basic principle of intelligent life." Sarah noticed something interesting as she scanned the chamber. Despite the outrage, despite the anger, most species were looking at her with confusion rather than hatred. They genuinely could not understand. In their worlds, in their cultures, the very concept of harming children was so foreign that they struggled to process what they had seen. "May I explain?" Sarah asked, raising her hand. The chamber slowly quieted. High Elder Vorn gestured impatiently for her to continue. "First, let me be absolutely clear," Sarah began. "What you saw was real. It happened, and it was wrong. No excuse can justify the suffering of those children. But I think there is context that might help you understand how such things occurred, even if that understanding does not make it acceptable." She activated her own holographic display. Images appeared showing the vastness of Earth, its billions of inhabitants, its countless nations and cultures and languages. Humanity did not evolve with a unified planetary government, like many of your species, she explained. For most of our history, we were divided into thousands of separate tribes, nations, and empires. We fought wars against each other. We competed for resources. We feared those who were different from ourselves. The Zentari ambassador tilted his head. Many species experience such divisions in their early development, but they do not cage their children. "You are correct," Sarah acknowledged. And that is perhaps the greatest shame of our history. In times of conflict, in times of fear, some humans made the terrible choice to treat certain children as less than fully human. Children of enemies. Children of other races. Children of immigrants fleeing violence and poverty. Some of our leaders decided that these children did not deserve the same protection as others. Delegate Marisol raised a trembling hand. But surely the other humans stopped this? Surely there was resistance. Sarah smiled sadly. Yes, there was always resistance. Every time such horrors occurred, there were humans who fought against them, who protested, who risked their own freedom to help those children, who documented the abuses so the galaxy would one day see them. The footage you watched exists because brave humans recorded it and shared it, hoping to create change. She changed the display to show images of protests, of activists, of ordinary people standing outside detention facilities, demanding the release of children. Images of lawyers working for free to reunite families. Images of journalists exposing the conditions inside these places. Humanity has always contained both darkness and light, Sarah continued. We are capable of tremendous cruelty, but we are also capable of tremendous compassion. The same species that built those cages also built the movements that eventually tore them down. High Elder Vaughn leaned forward. You speak of this in past tense. Do such practices continue on your world? Sarah hesitated. Honesty had been the foundation of humanity's relationship with the galactic community. She would not abandon it now. We have made great progress, she said carefully. The specific facilities you saw in that footage have been closed. International agreements now exist to protect children's rights. But I will not pretend that every human child today lives in safety and comfort. Poverty still exists. Conflict still exists. There are still places where children suffer. The chamber fell quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. Less angry. More thoughtful. The Synth Collective spoke through their shared voice. We have analyzed your species extensively since first contact. We have noted that humans possess an unusual capacity for both violence and empathy. This duality has confused our processing systems. Perhaps this information provides clarity. Sarah nodded. Humanity is a species in constant conflict with itself. Our greatest enemy has always been our own nature. But I believe that is also our greatest strength. We do not accept our flaws as permanent. We fight against them. We create laws and institutions specifically designed to prevent ourselves from causing harm. We teach our children to be better than we were. Ambassador Krelvath spoke again, his tone notably softer than before. In our history, there is a period known as the Darkness. It lasted 300 cycles. During that time, the Zentari committed acts that still shame us. We do not speak of them often. We prefer to forget. Humans cannot forget, Sarah replied. We record everything, every triumph and every failure. We build museums dedicated to our worst moments. We force our children to learn about the horrors their ancestors committed. We do this because forgetting makes it easier to repeat those mistakes. Delegate Marisol wiped her crystalline tears. This is a strange approach. Most species bury their shame. Buried shame grows in the dark, Sarah said. Exposed shame can be confronted and overcome. Those children in the cages deserved better. We failed them. The least we can do now is ensure that their suffering is never forgotten, never minimized, never repeated. High Elder Vorn slowly nodded his massive head. When the Gorvath first encountered your species, we thought you weak. You are small. You are fragile. You lack natural weapons. But we have learned that we were wrong. Your strength is not physical. He stood from his seat, towering over the other delegates. Any species can pretend to be civilized when times are easy. True character is revealed in crisis. Humanity has faced crisis after crisis, and yes, you have sometimes fallen into darkness. But you have always climbed back toward the light. That requires a strength that we did not recognize. The chamber began to shift. Delegates who had called for humanity's expulsion now looked thoughtful. The Cricks had stopped their distress signals. Even the Synth Collective seemed to be processing new conclusions. I propose, High Elder Vorn continued, that instead of punishing humanity for their past, we learn from it. Every species in this chamber has hidden shame. Perhaps we should follow the human example and bring those shamas into the light. Ambassador Kralvath clicked his agreement. The Zentari will share records of our darkness. It is time our children learned the truth of what we once were. One by one, other species voiced their support. Delegate Mirasol promised to open the sealed archives of the Etherian purges. The Gorvath admitted to ancient conquest campaigns that had devastated entire worlds. Even the mysterious Synth Collective acknowledged past experiments that they had hidden from their own historical records. Sarah watched in amazement as the meeting transformed from a trial of humanity into something else entirely. A moment of collective honesty, a recognition that every species carried burdens of guilt. That civilization was not a destination, but a constant journey. When the session finally ended, Ambassador Krelvath approached Sarah privately. His 4 eyes studied her with new respect. "You knew this would happen," he said. "You anticipated our reaction and prepared accordingly." Sarah shook her head. "No, I hoped it would happen. But I was prepared for the opposite. Humanity has learned that hope and preparation must walk together. Your species continues to surprise us," Krelvath admitted. "When we first made contact, we expected to find a primitive race barely worthy of notice. Instead, we found perhaps the most complex species in the galaxy. Complex is a kind word for it," Sarah said with a slight smile. "Contradictory might be more accurate." Krelvath made the Zentari gesture of respect. Contradiction requires the ability to hold multiple truths simultaneously, to be capable of great evil and yet choose good, to know darkness intimately and still reach for light. This is not weakness. This is wisdom earned through suffering. As Sarah left the chamber, she thought about the children in those cages, the ones who had cried themselves to sleep, the ones who had been separated from everything they loved. They had suffered because humanity had failed them, but their suffering had not been forgotten. It had been recorded, preserved, and now shared with an entire galaxy. Perhaps, she thought, that was the only redemption possible. Not erasing the past, but ensuring it served as a warning for the future. Those children had deserved protection that they did not receive. But their story might now protect countless others across hundreds of worlds. The stars visible through the station's windows seemed to shine a little brighter. Somewhere out there, species were beginning difficult conversations about their own hidden shamas. Humanity's greatest failure had somehow become a catalyst for galactic change. That did not make it acceptable. Nothing could make it acceptable. But it meant that the suffering had not been entirely in vain. And that was the most human truth of all. The belief that even the darkest moments could eventually lead towards something better. It was not forgiveness. It was not healing. It was simply the stubborn human refusal to let tragedy be the end of the story.